When Sergeant Daniel Reeves stepped off the bus with a duffel bag over his shoulder, he expected silence. He expected distance. He expected people to look at him the way they always did after soldiers come home, with respect, but also with discomfort. What he didn't expect was for his elderly neighbor to step off her porch, look him in the eyes, and say just one sentence. "She waited for you every single night." Daniel didn't understand what she meant. But within minutes, that sentence would unravel 3 years of buried guilt, and lead him to a discovery that would change his life, and his daughter's, forever. Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought overseas. Sometimes they're fought at home. And Daniel was about to face the one war he never prepared for. Daniel Reeves had left for deployment when his daughter Emma was only 5 years old. She had cried at the airport, clutching a small stuffed bear in one hand and his uniform sleeve in the other. "Don't forget me, Daddy," she whispered. He had knelt down, holding her tiny shoulders. "Never. I'm doing this so you'll always be safe." He believed that. War had always been simpler for Daniel than ordinary life. Clear objectives. Defined enemies. Structured rules. But being a single father after losing his wife to illness 2 years earlier had been a battlefield of its own. He loved Emma fiercely, but the weight of grief and responsibility had suffocated him. Deployment felt, in some ways, like an escape disguised as duty. He told himself Emma would be fine staying with his sister during those years. He told himself she was strong. He told himself 3 years wasn't that long. But time moves differently for children. Now, stepping back into his quiet suburban neighborhood, Daniel felt strangely out of place. The houses looked smaller. The trees taller. The world had continued without him. His old house stood at the end of the street, lights off, paint slightly chipped. He felt a tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with combat memories. Before he reached his front door, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, his 72-year-old neighbor, stood up from her rocking chair. She had always been kind to Emma, baking cookies and waving from across the yard. She walked toward him slowly, her silver hair catching the afternoon light. "You're finally home," she said gently. "Yes, ma'am," Daniel replied, forcing a smile. She studied him for a moment, not his uniform, not his medals, but his eyes. Then she said the sentence that made his heartbeat stumble. "She waited for you every single night." Daniel blinked. Waited. Mrs. Whitmore nodded toward the house. She studied him for a moment, not his uniform, not his medals, but his eyes. Then she said the sentence that made his heartbeat stumble. "She waited for you every single night." Daniel blinked. Waited. Mrs. Whitmore nodded toward the house. "After dinner, she would sit by the window in your bedroom. She said if she looked at the sky long enough, maybe you'd see the same stars and know she was thinking about you." Daniel felt something inside him crack. The next morning, Daniel drove to his sister's house to bring Emma home. When she saw him standing at the door, she froze. For a second, she didn't move. Then she ran into his arms with a force that nearly knocked him backward. He held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling how much taller she had grown. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did." But even as he said it, he knew she hadn't been sure. That evening, back in their home, Emma hesitated near the staircase. "Can I still sit by the window?" she asked quietly. Daniel knelt down to her level. "You don't have to wait anymore." She looked confused. "What if you leave again?" There it was. The real fear. War had given him discipline, strength, medals. But it had also given his daughter uncertainty. That night, instead of sitting alone by the window, Daniel sat beside her. They looked at the stars together. "Which one did you think I was looking at?" he asked gently. Emma pointed to the brightest one. "That one. I told it secret so it could tell you." Daniel swallowed hard. He realized Mrs. Whitmore's sentence wasn't just about waiting. It was about connection. Emma hadn't needed a hero. She needed a father present in small, ordinary moments. The following week, Daniel made a decision that shocked everyone in his unit. He declined a promotion that required redeployment. His commanding officer stared at him. This could define your career. Daniel nodded. I know. So why turn it down? Daniel thought of a small pillow by a window. She waited for me long enough. He transitioned into a training role closer to home. The pay was lower. The prestige less impressive. But for the first time in years, Daniel felt clarity. Healing wasn't just about therapy sessions and quiet nights. It was about showing up consistently. Months passed. Emma stopped sitting by the window alone. Instead, she started leaving small sticky notes on Daniel's desk. Don't forget to eat lunch. Good luck today. Movie night. One evening, Mrs. Whitmore waved from her porch as Daniel and Emma planted flowers in the yard. You look different, she called out. Daniel smiled. I am. Because he finally understood something war never taught him. Courage isn't just running toward danger. Sometimes it's staying when it's easier to leave. Sometimes it's choosing presence over pride. Years later, when Emma graduated high school, she stood at the podium and told the audience about resilience. She didn't talk about medals. She didn't talk about sacrifice overseas. She talked about a night sky, a window, and a father who chose to sit beside her. After the ceremony, Daniel looked up at the stars again. This time, there was no waiting. No distance. No fear of leaving. Only gratitude. Because one simple sentence from a neighbor had forced him to see the battle he was losing at home. And winning that battle was the greatest victory of his life. Strong message for the end. Success means nothing without presence. Sacrifice means little if love feels distant. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a parent can say is not, I'll protect you, but I'm here.